Afternoon. How you guys doing? Good. Good. Yes. Go ahead.
What do you think about giving this last game in terms of receiving game, running, and all that stuff?
Yeah, I think DJ's been steady for us all year long in the different roles we've asked of him, whether it's been special teams, returning kicks, punts, and then being in there on third downs as a running back. And then, when he has had his chance to get some carries, like this past week, he's shown that physicality. He had a chance to really show it off, I think, in the Chargers game in a 4-minute situation. So, he has it in. And then similar run style where, where that point of contact happens, he's able to extend the play 3, 4, 5 more yards, and did a great job for us there. And then him and Gino on an explosive play where got a little off schedule right there, and he's able to create a 40-plus yard play on a kind of a flip check down right there. Just a good overall understanding of the game, and he's just a great part of our offense.
In the previous game against the Rams, what was working so well between Gino and the wide receivers?
Yeah, I think Gino's rhythm, starting with the offensive line up front, doing a good job in their role as pass protectors there with the backs, and then the tight ends, giving Gino that time to allow himself to get down the field, and then the receivers, got to be it's like it always is against the Rams, a competitive matchup with the guys on the outside, and I think they just did an excellent job of playing still within the game, not letting the moment, take away from the technique and the route, intricacies within each play, and I think they were on the same page, and the timing and rhythm was where we want it to be. So it's always going to be tough to mimic and emulate something every time out there, but that was a good start.
The Jets just make it sort of difficult with the ball with DK on Sunday?
Yeah, they did a good job, and it's one of the harder parts is knowing that we want to get DK the ball as many times as we can because he's so productive when it's in his hands, and certain times where they do a good job of leaning coverage, or it just didn't work out in the some of the plays where he's won in the progression. But I thought he did a good job again in a game where it didn't always work out for him, where he's running hard, and then same thing that ends up happening, he ends up pulling coverage away, and other guys get to have some success off of his the attention that he's able to get throughout the course of the game. And saw it with with Colby's first touchdown there, where you got DK where they go out to double him in the red zone there, and Gino does a great job of progressing through the play and ends up finding Colby for a big time throw there.
Defenses lead safeties at camp.
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear. Yeah, they've been, DK always attracts attention. So, even some of the single high structures, week in and week out, where you're saying, okay, you might have a one-on-one matchup here, you still get some of those post safeties leaning towards DK and offering that presence over the top.
What's the effect on your offense, or what have you been able to do?
I think when we're really rolling, you see the effect is the other guys coming to life more and more. I think the tight ends have done a nice job all year long being productive when some of those things have happened. Then whether it's Tyler's always going to be out there getting his catches and winning on his routes, but Treadwell's done a nice job of stepping into some of those beneficial matchups where he's getting some singles. So just keeping in the rhythm of the plays, and I think Gino does a great job of knowing that we want to get the ball to certain guys, but not forcing it, not going out, and trying to do too much, and just sticking within the progression of the play and letting all 5 eligibles benefit.
What's inspiring?
Sorry, come right back.
What's inspiring to Tariq at fullback?
Just seeing him, the more he can do, he has a good history, in terms of playing some different spots, as he was a college player there, and, wasn't just a receiver coming up, and, his ability to be flexible and do different things just allows you to be a little creative with him at times on offense.
Just the patience of running the ball against a team that is really good against them. What goes into that? You have to try different things. You always have to stick with it.
Yeah, I think, like you said, to finish it there, sticking with the run, I think is an important thing. I think I felt good about last week where, the Jets play a lot of shell coverage, just like the Rams end up starting in a lot of shell, even though they drop down guys, safeties into the box there a little bit later. But that ability to stick with the run throughout the course of the game, from the first quarter on through to the fourth quarter, and then being productive, with our targets, being productive with our runs. They don't always have to be explosive. It's not, it's never a bad thing. Like when Ken busts out for a 60-yard run, we'll take those too. But just as important is getting those 4 or 5 yard gains throughout the course of the game, so we're staying on schedule as an offense.
Are your backs attacking the line when you're out? When it happens, it just happens with just as the season goes?
Yeah, I think anytime you see, as the season goes, just being in sync more and more every single week, week in and week out. I think it's a combination of the last, the last half against Kansas City, and then this past week's game of really all 11 coming back together in the run game, where we felt like we were at towards that middle point in the season. Then I know we hit a little bit of a lull in the run game for a few games, but just always taking all 11, all guys, on point with their assignments in the run game, whether it's a motion that's pulling someone out or it's a quarterback finishing on a fake. I mean, all these things in our mind are just as important as how we're hitting the blocks up front and how aggressively the backs are hitting the hole, so it all comes together.
What made that plan work so well?
I think just starting with the targets up front, I think the guys did a good job staying tight on their combinations, and then Ken's patience, exploding that to the line of scrimmage, getting on the cleats of the offensive line, and then having that patience to let the whole play out. And then the guys on the backside, the tight ends, doing a great job of finishing there as well. And then, once he gets through that first level, you just see that speed and acceleration come to life.
Shane, with it being week 18 and the uncertainty of if there's going to be a next week, how would you assess yourself this year as a play caller and having this offense function the way you want it?
Yeah, I think going through looking back at the year like you always do in the weekly self scout, just getting more and more comfortable with different situations that may present themselves. But I think for me personally, just always keeping each week as a learning opportunity. Finding out what worked, what didn't work. Different situations. There's an infinite amount of situations that can come up throughout the course of the football game. So having those, just banking those reps as a play caller, and then just trusting what's going on throughout the course of the game, and feeling more and more comfortable each time. Like everyone that does something, the more reps you get at things, the more things you see, the more comfortable you can become. And I think it's been a fun second year so far going through it with these guys.
Sticking with it on the lineman after being mentioned that very thing, that maybe that's the key to sticking with it.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in the box calling, down in distance, are you consciously have a goal? I want this many runs in this portion of the game. Is there a benchmark you have?
Yeah, I think what ends up happening, we don't have a specific number, but I think if you look back at the course of games, when you stay efficient, you can end up getting into that 25, 30, 35 runs. And then especially when you get towards the end of games, like I know we had the opportunity in the Arizona game, in this game, the Chargers game, when you're up in the game in the fourth quarter and you have that opportunity to get more runs going, that's when those final statistics end up being in your favor. And so it's no surprise when you end up with some of these bigger run totals in the course of the games. You're playing better because you're playing with the either even or in front of the game as you get into the second half to get more runs off, and you're playing efficient. So I think the goals are always to, if you have somewhere in that balance of 50-50, those are goals that you look for. But every game's going to play out just a little bit different. Like this past time that we played the Rams, we ended up, we had some runs. We had, the first explosive run in the game, and then, this is a great run defense. So we had to shift gears a little bit there and throw it a little more, which worked out for us in the end. So I think each game's always going to be a little different. We always have that overall goal of somewhere, in that 50% range, but, it just depends how the third and fourth quarter play out.
Have you had a game yet in Seattle where the game plan was pretty much what actually got called? The game followed exactly what?
Yeah, I think, maybe, in the Detroit game, there's a lot of things that kind of fell in place for the game plan. But I think even that game, though, there's always going to be things where, you usually go into the game with a good amount of tools in the tool belt right there, and you kind of adjust based on what the defense is given, and try to stay in that attacking mode, but always ready to adjust if there's some different contours like we talked about with week in and week out, how teams are going to want to play. DK Metcalf might change from week to week based on what the previous game was or what the previous opponent was. So just, I think, always being ready for it, having enough things ready, and then being in that open communication with the other coaches so we're ready to adjust and adapt as each game goes on.
Anything else?
You there? All right. Thank you.